The prophecy about the Messiah's coming in the book of Daniel chapter 9. Why Daniel chapter 9 points to Jesus of Nazareth. Welcome to another chapter of Jesus is Messiah. Please take the time to like and subscribe to this channel. We really appreciate you. Today, we step into one of the most debated passages in the Hebrew Bible, Daniel chapter 9, 24 to 27. Is it a prophetic countdown to the Messiah who is cut off before the destruction of the Second Temple? Or is it a symbolic timetable for a past crisis? We'll examine the competing interpretations, engage objections with respect, and make the case that Daniel 9 is a powerful, time-anchored prophecy fulfilled in Jesus of Nazareth. Setting the stage, what Daniel 9 actually says. Before debates and dates, listen to the shape of the text itself. A decree goes out to restore and rebuild Jerusalem. There's a measured interval, 7 sevens plus 62 sevens. Then, an anointed one arrives and is cut off. After that cutting off, the people of a coming prince destroy the city and the sanctuary. And the vision's goals? Finish transgression, atone for sin, bring everlasting righteousness, seal vision and profit, and confirm a covenant. Notice the order. The anointed is cut off first. Only afterward come the city's fall and the sanctuary's destruction. That sequence is the backbone of this episode. Two major interpretations emerge. The Jesus-centered reading. Daniel 9, 24 to 27 is a messianic timetable culminating in an anointed one, cut off before the Roman destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE, whose death accomplishes atonement and confirms a covenant. The Onias-Antiochus reading. Daniel's weeks are symbolic of 2nd century BCE events. The anointed is Onias III, a high priest assassinated amid Seleucid oppression. The desecration concerns Antiochus IV, more a crisis chronicle than a messianic countdown. We'll let each view speak, then test which best fits the passage's sequence, theology, and historical anchors. Segment 2, the Jesus-centered case. Start with the fixed point in history, the destruction of Jerusalem and the Second Temple in 70 CE under Roman command. Daniel 9 says, this catastrophe comes after the anointed is cut off. That means the anointed's ministry and death must occur before 70 CE. The window closes there. Now consider Jesus. Timing, his public ministry, death, and resurrection claims unfold during the Second Temple period, decades before 70 CE. Cut off, the crucifixion is a public, violent death under Roman authority, precisely the kind of cutting off the text anticipates. Theological core. Early Christian testimony treats his death as atoning and covenant inaugurating, exactly the goals embedded in Daniel 9, atonement, righteousness, sealing prophecy, confirming a covenant. Aftermath. Only after his death does the city and sanctuary fall in 70 CE, aligning with Daniel's stated order. What about the countdown itself, the 7 plus 62 sevens? That's where discussions of the decree come in. Many argue that a Persian royal authorization, often linked to Artaxerxes, fits Daniel's language to restore and rebuild Jerusalem, not just the temple. Counting forward lands the 69 sevens in the Second Temple era, setting the stage for an anointed figure to appear and be cut off before 70 CE. Even where scholars debate exact starting points and year lengths, the broader arc tightens the time frame to the very period where Jesus stands. One more crucial point. Daniel 9 doesn't require immediate worldwide peace or visible political kingship. Its focus is the anointed's cutting off and covenant atonement outcomes, followed by judgment on Jerusalem. In Jewish categories, that aligns with a Messiah ben Joseph suffering phase rather than the consummated Messiah ben David reign. Christians hold both, a suffering, atoning first advent, a consummating royal advent to come. Daniel 9, 24 to 27 is about the first. Segment 3, the Onias-Antiochus alternative, fairly stated. The Onias-Antiochus reading deserves a fair hearing. Horizon. Daniel 9, 24 to 27 is framed as encouragement to persecuted Jews in the 2nd century BCE. The anointed who is cut off is Onias III, a legitimate high priest murdered amid political intrigue. Desecration. Antiochus IV profanes the temple. Sacrifices cease. An abomination stands in the holy place. Eventually, the Maccabees drive reform and rededicate the temple. Hanukkah commemorates this deliverance. Symbolic timing. The 77s are apocalyptic schema, covenantal cycles, not a precise stopwatch. The text functions theologically, not as messianic math landing on a specific first-century date. Why some find it persuasive. It grounds the text in the lived crises Daniel's audience faced. It interprets apocalyptic symbols as symbols, avoiding over-precision. It doesn't need New Testament claims to make sense. But here's where it struggles with Daniel 9's own sequence and weight. The sequence problem. In Daniel, the anointed is cut off, then city and sanctuary are destroyed. In the Onias-Antiochus model, desecration happens, then purification and rededication, not an ultimate destruction of city and sanctuary after a redemptive cutting off. The theological load, Daniel 9:24's climax, atonement, everlasting righteousness, sealing prophecy, covenant confirmation, reads like theologically decisive redemption. A murdered high priest and a later civic victory don't naturally carry those universal, covenantal outcomes. The 70 CE reality, the literal, catastrophic destruction of the city and Second Temple in 70 CE occurs after Jesus' death, but long after the Maccabean crisis. If Daniel intended the post-cut-off ruin of city and sanctuary, 70 CE is the historical event that fits that order. In short, the Onias horizon coheres with persecution and desecration, but it does not map cleanly to Daniel 9's post-cut-off destruction, nor to its redemptive goals. Segment 4. Objections to the Jesus-centered reading. Let's address thoughtful objections without strawmen. Objection 1. The math is elastic. Start decrees vary. Year lengths differ. Response. Even granting debates, the non-negotiable sequence remains. Anointed appears, is cut off, then city and sanctuary are destroyed. That alone requires a pre-70 CE anointed figure whose death precedes the temple's fall. Jesus uniquely occupies that window with a movement that interpreted his death as atoning and covenantal. Objection 2. The anointed might be two people, one after 7 sevens, another cut off after 62. Response. Splitting the figures doesn't remove the theological center. Daniel 9:24 piles redemptive outcomes onto the timeline's culmination. The cut-off figure carries the weight of atonement and covenant confirmation. That aligns with a single messianic suffering redeemer more than with a priestly casualty. Objection 3. Daniel is apocalyptic. Don't press precision. Response. Granted, Daniel uses symbolic cycles, but it also gives a concrete historical order, cutting off first, destruction of city and sanctuary second. That's not over-precision, it's sequence. History gives us a devastation in 70 CE that follows Jesus' death. The text's backbone meets a datable event. Objection 4. Jesus didn't bring visible, universal peace as Messiah ben David. Response. Daniel 9 isn't about immediate geopolitical peace. It's about atonement, covenant, and a coming destruction. In Jewish categories, that aligns with a suffering phase. The royal peace belongs to consummation. Different phases, same Messiah. Segment 5. Why the Jesus-centered reading best fits the text. 3 reasons the Jesus-centered reading coheres best with Daniel 9 itself. Sequence integrity. Daniel's order is precise. Anointed appears, is cut off, city and sanctuary destroyed. Only Jesus' timeline dovetails with the 70 CE destruction in the required order. Alternatives either reframe the destruction as earlier desecration with later rededication, or detach the sequence from the Roman catastrophe altogether. Theological coherence, Daniel 9:24's aim, atonement, righteousness, sealing revelation, covenant confirmation, matches the Christian claim about Jesus' death, an atoning, covenant-inaugurating act that seals, confirms, the prophetic witness and redefines sacrifice prior to the temple's fall. Historical non-manipulability. Jesus' death and the 70 CE destruction are independent events under different Roman regimes, separated by decades. No human movement could choreograph the siege of Jerusalem to line up with a prior execution to fit a prophecy. The alignment looks providential, not staged. Segment 6, the Messiah ben Joseph lens. Some objections arise from mixing categories. If one expects the Messiah to immediately establish geopolitical peace, the Jesus claim seems incomplete. But Daniel 9 doesn't ask the anointed to enthrone global shalom. It spotlights suffering, atonement, covenant, and a coming judgment. In Jewish discourse, that's Messiah ben Joseph territory, suffering first, while Messiah ben David, reign, belongs to consummation. On that framework, Jesus' first advent fulfills Daniel 9's phase 1. The visible Davidic piece is future phase 2. Segment 7, closing appeal, why this matters. If Daniel 9 is read on its own terms, two things emerge. A suffering anointed is cut off, and afterward, the city and sanctuary fall. History gives us Jesus' crucifixion and then 70 CE. Theology gives us atonement and covenant, exactly what Daniel names. The Onias-Antiochus reading explains real persecution, but it does not carry Daniel's redemptive weight or its post-cut-off destruction sequence to a definitive historical endpoint. So the question isn't whether Daniel 9 has symbolism. It does. The question is whether its spine, its order and outcomes finds a match in history. On the evidence, Jesus uniquely fits, appearing and being cut off before the Second Temple's destruction, with a death understood by his earliest followers as atoning and covenant confirming. That's why, for so many, Daniel 9 isn't just interesting, it's compelling. In our next episode, we'll walk through one detailed chronology, start decree options, counting assumptions, and where the 69 sevens plausibly land, alongside the Onias timeline, so listeners can see the numbers and decide how much precision is truly needed when the sequence is already doing the heavy lifting. Thanks for listening. If this episode helped, share it with someone wrestling with the Daniel 9 prophecy. Send questions for our follow-up deep dive on the timeline. And remember, debate with clarity, but also with charity. See you next time in 70 weeks. If you like this content, please remember to share, like, and subscribe.